achieved.
Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we're taking a look at the upcoming UFC on Fuel TV 10 event, which will take place on June 8th. Now, there will be 6 main card fights. I'm breaking down the 5 that are posted right now. The 6th is the second installment of the Ultimate Fighter Brazil's tournament finals. When it's posted, I will post my prediction on the website along with all of my preliminary picks, which will be, as I said, available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. I'm coming off a 7-5 UFC 160. I went 5-0 on the main card, including calling that big TJ Grant upset. Had Rick Story been able to finish Mike Pyle early, I would have gone 8-4 and won the last 7 fights of the night. So it was it wasn't a bad night. My prop bets of the betting packs did well. Please take a look at and consider buying them. $10, doing all the work, putting all the work in to try and make you some cash. There's some interesting fights on this card that I'll be breaking down. Also, before I get into my predictions, the Kamikaze Overdrive Prediction Tournament kicked off with UFC 160. The opening round will conclude with this event, and the field will be narrowed from 32 competitors down to 16. Their picks will be hopefully posted on the website just before this event starts, so please check them out. I got lots of fights to go on, and just on a personal note or a side note, the Stanley Cup semifinals, the conference finals are underway, and my Bruins are fresh off a Game 1 victory over the Pittsburgh Penguins, so I'm pretty amped up. 3-0 over the Penguins in Pittsburgh, so I'm pretty excited. On that note, let's get to the first prediction. Our first prediction that comes in the UFC's featherweight division is Ronny Jason, 13-3-0, battles Mike the Warrior Wilkinson, 8-0. Jason on a pretty significant winning streak, 7 wins, including his first 2 UFC bouts, while Mike Wilkinson undefeated, and he was also successful in his UFC debut. Now we have the original winner of the first ever Ultimate Fighter Brazil taking on a Tough Smashes competitor who actually won his opening round bout and then bowed out with injury, and Wilkinson wasn't able to continue. Now Wilkinson is making his first cut from featherweight to from lightweight to featherweight, which is a big issue. Plus he's fighting in Brazil for the very first time, and this is really his first non-Tough Smashes opponent, so it's a lot of big scenarios for Wilkinson coming into this fight. Ronny Jason is a BJJ and kickboxing black belt and a judo orange belt, so a very decorated fighter in that sense. 7-12 wins have come by submission. Now in the Sam Cecilia fight, he was taken down by Cecilia in that bout, but he attacked off his back effectively and did a pretty decent job of limiting what Cecilia was able to capitalize on. When Ronny Jason got on top, he had some heavy ground and pound, and he eventually actually hurt Cecilia and eventually put him away with his top game. He has 4 wins by knockout, including, of course, that last fight. He's a decent counter striker, but he'll also throw some pretty solid jumping knees, and he has some vicious hooks that were very accurate in that Cecilia fight, and he landed some big shots. Additionally, he's going to have a 7-inch reach advantage in this fight, and I expect to see him counter Wilkinson as he comes forward, attempting to close that distance down. Now, Wilkinson is undefeated, but you have to question, which is fantastic, but you question how much adversity he's faced in his career so far. He has 4 wins by submission, plus his only win on The Ultimate Fighter was also by tap out. He will shoot a nice double. He's got a pretty good shot if he can get the fight to the ground. He likes to push forward with punches, and he will use some feints and fakes to get inside, which is very important when you're trying to cover such a big distance. But he has a tendency to get a little bit wild and over-aggressive and chase his opponent instead of cutting off the cage. And if he chases Ronny Jason, he's going to get hit with some big-time counters. He was dropped in the 3rd of his original debut, and he appeared to be fading a little bit, and that's not something you can do against a guy who's going to feed off the Brazilian crowd. Wilkinson has never faced the caliber of fighter like his opponent will be facing in this one, and he won't have the ground game to back him up, which he usually is able to fall back on, or at least use as his primary weapon. So my prediction is Ronny Jason to defeat Mike Wilkinson, and I'm going to take Jason to win this fight by TKO. Our second prediction of the night comes to us in the UFC's welterweight division is Erick Silva, 14-3-0 with 1 no contest, battles the Kansas City Bandit, Jason High, 17-3-0. High on a pretty significant winning streak coming to this. He's won 7 in a row, while Erick Silva coming off a decision defeat against John Fitch. His first, I guess you'd call this as a first official UFC defeat, negating that Carlo Prater loss that he had. First thing first, physically looking at this matchup, Silva's a very large welterweight at 5'11", compared to High, who only comes in at 5'8", and Silva's going to have a 2.5-inch reach advantage, which should aid him. Now, High's coming off a year-long layoff. He last competed in Strikeforce, and although he's on a big winning streak, he hasn't fought in a year. And this is actually a late replacement bout. He's filling in for John Hathaway, which are things to take into consideration. Erick Silva, BJJ black belt and judo black belt, and now High, a purple belt and a former collegiate wrestler, so very good. Both guys very good in the grappling department. Both have most of their wins by submission. High with 7 and Silva with 8. Jason High also coming in off a 28-second submission win. He has 4 sub-wins inside the first minute of fights. That's pretty impressive that he can get a submission locked up that quickly. Now, Silva has 4 straight first-round wins, if you want to include the Carlo Prater prior to the Fish loss. I thought he defeated Prater until the official decided to change his mind and call the shots to the back of the head, so he's also capable of ending fights quickly. Now, Jason High is a ground-based fighter with improving striking, but he has been knocked out twice by Jay Heron and Marius Saromskis, so certainly his chin isn't ironclad. Looking at Silva, he picked up KO wins over Luis Ramos and, this is Carlo Prater, quote, win in quotes. But he only has 3 wins by knockout, so he's not exactly known for his knockout power overall, even though he showed it in the UFC. Flipping the coin, Silva only 3-2 in fights that go the distance, while High is 6-1, so that seems to be a little bit of Achilles' heel for the Brazilian if you can drag him into a long fight. You look at the Fish fight, it wasn't the first time Erick Silva has had trouble with grapplers. We saw that earlier in his career before he came into the UFC, where guys were able to take him down and give him some problems. One of his last fights in jungle fights, he was getting beaten on the ground until pulling off a late submission to pull out the victory. One thing I questioned too is Silva's fight IQ. He was throwing a lot of spinning and high-risk maneuvers and really showed a lack of respect for John Fish, which led to John Fish getting takedowns and positional control, and that really took its toll on Silva in that fight. Now that was Erick's first real experience against an American wrestler in John Fish. He did beat Charlie Brenneman, but of course that fight did not go very long. We didn't see Silva have to deal with a lot of what Brenneman could do over a longer period of time. Now, as I said, Silva, 7 of his 14 wins have come inside the first round, and 9 of 14 before the third round. He seemed to be breaking down mentally against John Fish. That's something we're going to have to watch in this bout. Now, Jason Hyde does a nice job of timing his opponent's attacks and catching them coming forward for takedowns, and that's something I expect a lot of in this fight, especially the way Erick Silva likes to do spinning attacks that set him up for takedowns. High needs to use his wrestling and drag Silva into the deep waters in this bout. He has been KO'd a couple of times, but he's a very dangerous grappler and should take away Silva's ability to knock him out if he can't get off his back. Silva needs to show improved game plan for dealing with takedowns. The Brenneman fight went his way, and that worked out great. The Fitch fight did not, and that really showed up in how he was able to come back in that fight, or at least not come back in that fight. I think it's going to be a close fight. I'm going to take a little bit of an upset. I'm going to take Jason High to defeat Erick Silva, and he'll do it by decision. For our third prediction of the evening, we move to the UFC's 185-pound division as Daniel Sarafian, 8-3-0, battles Eddie Mendez, 7-1-1 with 1 no contest. Sarafian made his official UFC debut in a losing effort against CB Dalloway via split decision, while Eddie Mendez has won back-to-back fights, including his lone Strikeforce appearance. Now, Sarafian tends to be an undersized middleweight, and a lot of people, including myself, want to see him go to welterweight, but Mendez is not much bigger, standing just an inch taller, so that should actually be very good for Sarafian in this fight. This is Mendez's debut. He's also coming to this bout on a 13-month layoff, which is not a good thing. He did have one Strikeforce fight, which was a split decision win, so he has some experience in the big show, but still nothing like what he's going to get into here going into Brazil facing a Brazilian. Overall, Mendez, 3 wins by knockout, 1 by submission, 3 wins by decision. He has decent boxing, will throw in some leg kicks. I've seen some footage of him using the tie clinch, which he can be very effective from. And generally speaking, he's a very aggressive striker. He likes to try and overwhelm his opponents on the feet and then on the ground if he can get the fight to that position. As I said, he will use some takedowns, but he could struggle against the very stout takedown defense of his opponent in this bout. Now, Sarafian, a BJJ black belt. He was a tough Brazilian finalist, but had to drop out with an injury, so we didn't actually get to see him compete in the finals, so we didn't know how he would have fared. He could have been the tough champion in that if things had gone his way. In his debut against CB Dalloway, he started out very strong, but ultimately faded, facing a much bigger opponent again. I said that won't be the case here. He's physically a very strong man. 6 of his 7 wins have come by submission, and he has 1 decision win. 6 of 7 wins have come by submission. He had 1 decision win, 1 submission win, and 1 flying knee knockout on The Ultimate Fighter, which shows a diverse attack, even though his pro career hasn't exactly gone that way. He's surprisingly fast on his feet for a strong individual like him. Lots of feints and fakes. He moves in his hips very well, which can make it difficult to time him. He likes to get inside and blitz his opponent. He hurt Dalloway with some big shots. He had a big overhand right. He was countering effective and always coming back. If Dalloway would land one, he was right back in there to match that shot, 1 for 1 or even 2 for 1, at least early on. He has very good takedown defense, stopping 4 of 6 takedowns from the much bigger Dalloway in that bout. But as I said, he slowed down late, which cost him the fight. He got hurt by an uppercut. He took some big shots. And again, Dalloway's 6'2". He's a much bigger man, and when that plays out over 15 minutes, that can cost a smaller fighter when you're trading shot for shot with him. I expect Sarafian's movement, his feints, and counter-striking ability, along with the threat of takedown that Mendez is going to deal with, is going to make it hard for Mendez to move forward and be as aggressive as he would like to be. Sarafian is strong, and he's going to benefit from not facing a larger opponent. I continue to key on in this prediction, and my prediction is Daniel Sarafian to defeat Eddie Mendez, and I'll take him by submission. In our next fight, we jump up to the UFC's light heavyweight division as Thiago Silva returns from suspension with a record of 14-3-0 with 2 no contests, taking on another fighter making his debut and coming off suspension, former Strikeforce fighter Rafael Cavalcante with a record of 11-3-0 with 1 no contest. Thiago Silva, as I said, coming off a no contest. He said 2 of his last 3 bouts overturned, both were victories originally, and he's winless in his last 4, while Fabricio had his win over Mike Kyle overturned. Prior to that, he defeated Yoel Romero and then lost the Strikeforce title via knockout to Dan Henderson. Very excited to see Fabricio in the UFC. I think he has a lot to offer in the division. Now, both guys said coming off suspension, but Cavalcante has been out for much longer. He's been out for over a year. Silva not nearly as long. Both guys are BJJ black belts, but only have a total of 2 submissions between them, which both belong to Thiago Silva. But interestingly enough, both of their suspension wins that they're coming off of were by submission. Silva averages 1.21 takedowns at a 47% rate, and he will use takedowns effectively. He has vicious top, mount, and ground and pound. We saw him dominate Brandon Vera from this position, and he stopped a number of guys when he can get on top. Now, Fabricio, he will also use takedowns as well, but not nearly as common. But the guy has excellent takedown defense at 80%, very strong hips, very powerful in the clinch. 11 wins by KO for each guy, so very dangerous with their hands. Silva knocking out guys like Keith Jardine, Houston Alexander, Fabricio knocking out King Mo, Yoel Romero, and Aaron Rosa. Now, Silva was stopped by Machida so far, so his chin not ironclad. Cavalcante stopped by Mike Kyle in the first time they met, and by Dan Henderson, and if Dan Henderson connects, he's going to stop anybody. Now, Fabricio, he did rock Henderson, which shows how much power he has early in that fight, and very capable if he can put a shot on a guy's chin. Now, Thiago, he's a very aggressive fighter. He constantly moves forward with that Muay Thai attack. Very effective when he can get his opponent backing up and not moving. He has had trouble with guys that he can't bully around. We saw Rashad Evans, Lyoto Machida, and Alexander Gustafsson use a lot of movement. And, Stanislav Nedkov had a lot of success, pushing back against Thiago and not giving in to his bullying pressure. And Thiago wasn't his best in that fight, but that's very interesting to see how that fight played out. Now, Thiago was losing the Nedkov fight, which is something to take into consideration, but when Nedkov gassed, Thiago was able to rally and tap him out. We'll see if that is the case here. If what Thiago shows up, we haven't really seen the killer Thiago since the Vera fight, and that's a big aspect of how successful he can be, is if he's aggressive and is effective in that sense. One thing I don't like about Thiago, though, he will keep coming forward, even if it's not working. Against Rashad Evans, he just kept moving forward, had no answer for the lateral movement or the speed of Rashad. He didn't change things up, and that's not an effective game plan. Fabricio, he's a much more diverse striker, and he's more calculated. He can land his shots, and he's going to change things up and come at different angles, where Thiago, again, likes to come forward. Thiago has the tools, but as I said, Fabricio is just a more refined fighter and should be able to defend any takedowns that Thiago tries to use if things aren't going his way. So my prediction is Rafael Fabricio to defeat Thiago Silva, and I'll take him by TKO. Our final fight of the night is, of course, our main event, and it's in the UFC's heavyweight division as Minotauro Nogueira, 34-7-1 with 1 no contest, battles Fabricio Werdum, 16-5-1. Nogueira is coming in off a win over Dave Herman. Prior to that, he had that brutal submission loss against Frank Mir. Werdum, on the other hand, back-to-back wins over Mike Russo and Roy Nelson. Now, this is a rematch of the 2006 Pride Openweight Grand Prix tournament. Nog won that bout by decision, but it's not that relevant of a fight considering it was 7 years ago, and a lot has changed. Nog's age and battle damage has really piled up, and Fabricio Werdum has vastly improved his striking, become far more of a multi-dimensional fighter than at least he was in that bout. Now, this is a long layoff for both guys. Werdum almost a year away, and Nog's been off for a long time as well, and considering the way Nog fights, maybe this has been a good thing with him needing to repair and recoup some injuries, but at the same time, he's not the type of guy who wants to be away from the cage too long because, ring rust can take a toll on older guys, or at least guys who have a lot of that battle damage going on. Now, Nog is a third-degree BJJ black belt and a judo black belt, so a very capable grappler. Werdum, on the other hand, a second-degree black belt, BJJ black belt, a judo black belt, and a black belt in Muay Thai, so also a very good guy on the ground, two of the most dangerous fighters on the mat the UFC has to offer. Werdum 8-0 in fights that have ended by submission, tapping out guys like, of course, Fedor, Alistair Overeem, while Nog 21-1 in fights that end by submission, that one over Dave Herman. He just picked up Mirko Krokop, also Dan Henderson, but we also know he got viciously submitted by Frank Mir, which was, a huge notch in the belt of Frank Mir because how good Nog is on the mat. Nog averages 1.36 takedowns per fight at a 33% clip. Werdum a little bit better at 1.98 at a 33% clip as well. So Werdum a slight edge in takedowns landed. Takedown defense, Nog 36%, Werdum 33%. But again, that's because, going in that Werdum fight, Werdum against Nog, he landed 5 takedown attempts. Nog went 1 for 1. Now, neither guy puts up big takedown numbers, and both are dangerous on the ground. But as a case with a lot of wrestlers, BJJ guys, we could see their grappling cancel out, and this turns into a strictly kickboxing matchup. Now, Nog, 3 wins by knockout, 2 losses by knockout. And his chin, which has been legendary, is starting to catch up with him. We saw him get stopped by Frank Mir and then Cain Velasquez. Fabricio Werdum, on the other hand, 5-1 fights to end by knockout. Now, Nog, as I said, has an amazing chin, but it seems to be failing, and this definitely swings things in the favor of Werdum. Werdum, the speed and diverse Muay Thai is a big asset he has going for him. While Nogueira, he's got good boxing, decent hands, but again, the speed might not be there. He showed some good head movement against Brendan Schaub, but again, Muay Thai attack of Werdum is very diverse and is going to give him a lot of problems. We saw what Fabricio did against Roy Nelson. He tore him apart, used a lot of range striking, and very effective with that tie clinch, and he hurt and finished Mike Russell, who up until that point was a very durable and tough guy. We saw him in that Duffy fight take a lot of damage, and Werdum put him away rather quickly. Now, Nog, it did hurt Frank Mir with a nice shot, and he finished Brendan Schaub, but he was having trouble with the speed of Schaub in that bout, and that's what I expect to see here with a little bit against Werdum. As I said, he was stopped by Mir in the first round. He was KO'd by Cain by a quick combination. And he was struggling with Tim Sylvia on the feet back when he won the interim title, which shows that his striking is not nearly as good as a lot of people would like it to believe. Now, Nog won't have the advantage on the ground to fall back on in this bout. At least shouldn't have, because Werdum is just as good, if not better, on the ground. And that's going to be a major issue. And now, one thing, Nog hasn't gone beyond the second round since 2009, so this is a 5-round fight. So if it goes deep, that's going to be a major issue as well for Nogueira. Werdum, 3 of his last 5 fights have gone the distance, so he knows what it's like to go into the longer fights and to be successful. Werdum's losses traditionally have come against guys that are simply superior strikers. Overeem, Junior Dos Santos, Andrei Arlovsky, Sergei Haritonov, and of course Nogueira. Werdum, but that was again before Werdum made all these strides he's made. Werdum is the better striker in this bout. More diverse attack. I keep harping on that. He could be as good, if not better, on the ground than Nogueira. I think Nog he hasn't been fighting the caliber of opponent that Werdum represents. So my prediction is Fabricio Werdum to defeat Big Nog by TKO. So those are 5 of my 6 main card predictions for the UFC on Fuel TV 10 event. All of my preliminary picks, as well as my Ultimate Fighter Brazil 2 tournament final prediction, will be available over at KamikazeOverdrive.net. If you are in the Kamikaze Overdrive prediction tournament, this is the second and final event of round number 1. Keep an eye on your emails. Check your junk mail if you haven't got this by the middle of the week, because I'll be sending it out as soon as possible. It's the email with the prediction card in it. Make your picks. Send them back into me. Good luck to everyone who's taking part, including my opponent. I'm in the tournament as well, hoping to advance. The batting packs will be posted. Go Boston Bruins. Great summer ahead of us of MMA and the UFC. And as always, thank you very much for listening.